Okay, so I'm going to go through this text. This is a text that was used a couple of years ago in May 2023 for English A Language and Literature. It's actually quite a difficult text, but there's a lot to notice and note. So, start off at the top. Following text is an extract from an article taken from The Guardian online. So first of all, we learn it's from The Guardian. This is a UK newspaper. It is for a liberal audience. Okay. So it's an article as well. We're not too sure about what kind of article or the purpose. Let's look at the guide in question. Keywords here. How does the article persuade the reader to rethink their approach to food and eating? So how we need to look at authorial choices, techniques, strategies and we understand here it's a persuasive text. Okay. Persuasive in nature, so we're going to have to think about how is it using maybe rhetorical appeals to ethos, pathos, logos. We're going to have to look at diction, maybe imagery, linguistic techniques, maybe even syntax. Okay, how does the article persuade the reader to rethink, maybe reconceptualize, reimagine their approach to food and to eating? Okay, let's have a look. The title, No Diet, No Detox, How to Relearn the Art of Eating. The most obvious thing to notice here is how eating is reimagined as an art. Okay, so it uses this kind of metaphor. To suggest that it's something eating requires maybe creative thinking, just like an art. Maybe it requires creative thinking, imagination, just like art, and passion. I don't know. Anyway, eating is conceptualized as an art. Okay, no diet, no detox, how to relearn. So just notice here, parallel phrasing, no diet, no detox. Instead, the article will try to persuade you how to relearn the art of eating. Okay. So something also interesting here to notice is it's published 5th of January. And down here it tells us in the subheading, our relationship to with food has become disordered and obsessive. As the new year brings diet madness, it needn't be such a struggle to learn good eating habits. So the text is kind of published in the new year, right? Which is usually a time of resolutions. It's a time when people often seek to change old habits and learn new ones. Okay. But it's challenging these kind of fads of diets and detoxes. Instead, it's asking us to rethink how we even approach something like eating. So just notice down here in the subtitle, our relationship with food has become disordered and obsessive. This new year brings diet madness and needn't be such a struggle to learn good eating habits. So, this problem and there'll be a problem addressed, hopefully, with a solution. So I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a problem solution text. Anyway, food or relationship with food has become disordered and obsessive, very negative diction. Okay, and immediately positioning us to think of how in the modern world, in contemporary society, our eating habits are not very healthy, disordered, obsessive. The new year brings diet madness. Okay, so again, it's a little bit of a metaphor. It needn't be such a struggle to learn good eating habits. So this subheading kind of previews the article. Okay, it's going to tackle this problem and hopefully may provide insight into how we can learn good eating habits. Let's have a look then at just the image actually. Something simple to notice, the color palette. So of interest, we have very muted silvers, juxtaposed, I guess, with bright, vivid, natural colors which really stand out. These are reds and greens, natural colors. This is contrast, okay, between maybe the artificial and the natural. Not too much we can say here, though, about the image. It gets our attention, makes the healthy fruit and vegetables stand out, makes them look appealing and appetizing. It's the focus of the image, I guess. Here in the center, draws our attention, and almost looks like they're coming towards the viewer and seem appetizing. So many of our anxieties around diet take the form of a search for the perfect food, the one that will cure all our ills. Notice here, so many of our anxieties cure all our ills. Okay, eat this, don't eat that. We obsess about the properties of various ingredients, the protein, the omega oils, the vitamins, but nutrients only count when a person picks up food and eats it. How we eat, how we approach food is what really matters. If we are going to change our diets, we first have to relearn the art of eating, which is a good question of psychology. As much as nutrition, it's a question of thinking, a question of psychology. We have to find a way to want what's good for us, to eat what's good for us. So notice how so many, there's a plethora of inclusive personal pronouns, foster, I guess, identification between the writer, the author, and the reader, as if we are in this together. Notice actually as well how we have a lot of strong modality here. We first have to relearn the art of eating, so that metaphor is repeated. We have to find a way to want to eat what's good for us. So we have to relearn, we have to find a way. Very strong modality. Urges a solution. Urges the reader to seek a solution. Okay. again, a lot of negative diction to characterize the problem, and actually Lexis to do with psychology as well. Anxieties, obsessive madness. So I'm going to just write that down. There's Lexis of psychology. Okay. Or eating habits are a product of our psychology, it seems to be, according to this text. So many of our anxieties, so disordered, obsessive, diet madness, anxieties. We're looking for a cure for all our ills. Eat this, don't eat that. We obsess, there again, about the properties of various ingredients, the proteins, the omega oils, the vitamins. But how we eat, how we approach food is what really matters. If we're going to change our diets, we first have to relearn the art of eating, which is a question of psychology as much as nutrition. Okay, so she's challenging us to think of our eating habits as kind of a product of our psychology, of our willpower. Okay, it's actually suggests that how we eat and what we eat is a matter of choice and willpower. So it's subtly indicating that we can relearn if we want to choose so. If we have the willpower, we can relearn to eat and eat what's good for us. Okay. Let's turn over. Let's have a look at the next part. Our tastes follow us around like a comforting shadow. Kind of an interesting metaphor here. Our taste follows around like a comforting shadow. So it kind of personalizes, personifies, and personalizes tastes. They follow us around as something like the comforting shadows, like something natural, something we cannot shed. They seem, continues personifying, they seem to tell us who we are. Our tastes tell us who we are. So our tastes link to our identity. It seems to tell us who we are. Maybe this is why we act as if our core attitudes to eating are set in stone. These idioms are being used, actually quite a lot of colloquial language being used so that the audience understands what the writer is talking about. Our taste follows around like the comforting shadow. They seem to tell us who we are. Maybe this is why we act as if our core attitudes to eating are set in stone. Of course, the writer wants to challenge this idea that they're set in stone. We make frequent attempts, more or less half-hearted, to change what we eat, but almost no effort to change how we feel about food. Okay, so the writer is trying to suggest that our feelings about food should be reimagined as well. How well we deal with hunger, how strongly attached we are to sugar, our emotions on being served a small portion. We try to eat more vegetables, but we do not try to make ourselves enjoy vegetables more. Maybe because there's a near universal conviction that it's not possible to learn new tastes and shed old ones, yet nothing could be further from the truth. So it seems to be, she wants to dispel this myth. And here we have lexical field of emotions and feelings. Okay, we need to reconceptualize how we feel, how strongly attached we are to certain types of foods. We try to eat more vegetables, but we do not try to make ourselves enjoy vegetables more, maybe because there's a new universal conviction. It's not possible to learn new tastes and shed old ones. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. So she's dispelling this myth. You cannot acquire new tastes, and using a lot of colloquial language and figurative language to get us to reimagine our approach to food. All the foods that you requirely eat are ones that you learned to eat. Everyone starts life drinking milk. After that, it's all up for grabs. So, short paragraph here. Seems to be a central kind of thesis, argument. All the foods that you regularly eat, ones you learned to eat, the product of habit. Everyone starts life drinking milk. Short sentences, grab our attention. After that, it's all up for grabs. So there's nothing inevitable. There's nothing inevitable about your eating habits. That's what's suggested there. It's all up for grabs. So these are colloquial phrases, idiomatic phrases. So that basically every type of reader, your ordinary reader, can understand what the writer is trying to persuade them of. Our eating habits are not set in stone. We can change what we eat, and we can actually change how we feel about what we eat. This is the central argument so far. Let's continue. I'm going to draw a line here because I see here there's a bit of a shift. Here she talks about in today's food culture, and I see a date here. I see more quotes down here. So hopefully she's going to start supporting this argument, maybe with some evidence that's credible and persuasive. So into the second half of the text. I started talking about this, but my computer ran out of battery. So let's go. Rather than go through how we can relearn the art of eating, actually the writer continues developing the problem. And she introduces the idea here through the use of two consumer scientists that those responsible for or unhealthy eating habits are the food companies, okay, which push foods high in sugar, fat, and salt. Okay, so this is why we all eat the same food over and over and over again. These food companies are responsible for our modern way of eating and our ways of thinking about eating. So just notice the use of language that's used when talking about the food companies, and she's using these two consumer scientists to develop her point. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. Okay. that people are in. Nobody likes to be in a cycle. Okay, it kind of connotes that you're trapped. Food companies push foods high in sugar, fat and salt, which is a funny way to put it, but deliberate. So food companies push food, not the loaded language. Usually we talk of drug dealers as pushing drugs, maybe on users. Here especially the verb is loaded. And they're targeting children. Okay, maybe this is a appeal to pathos, makes us look judgmentally at these food companies, and maybe fosters a sense of wrong, that what is happening is not right. And so the companies invent ever more of these foods that contribute to unhealthy eating habits. So they're at the root of the problem. The main influence on a child's palate may no longer be apparent, but a series of food manufacturers whose products, despite their illusion of infinite choice, deliver a monotonous flavour hit. So again, kind of like a drug. Quite unlike the more varied flavours of traditional cuisine. Now think about how the audience are probably adults who may have young families, how they're meant to feel about themselves here. Actually, it's not your fault. It's the fault of these nefarious food companies which are pushing their unhealthy foods high in sugar, fat and salt on vulnerable children, delivering a monotonous flavour hit. Actually a little bit oxymoronic here. Monotonous is negative and hit is positive, but it kind of jars the reader, quite unlike the more varied flavours of traditional cuisine. More positive language there, varied. The danger of growing up surrounded by endless sweet and salty industrial concoctions, negative, suggests artificial, suggestive of the artificial concoctions. It's not that we are innately incapable of resisting them, but that the more frequently we eat them, especially in childhood, the more they train us to expect all food to taste this way. So notice here the language, they train us. So the issue is kind of framed as us who want to be healthy versus the food companies which are training us actually to like the hit we get from their concoctions. Now let's see how the text ends. Notice the way that the problem is framed in this part of the text. How she uses these two consumer scientists, their language to support her thesis. And notice the way she's framing, especially through loaded language, the food companies, and how we're meant to feel like it's out of our hands. But maybe she's giving us a bit of hope that we can relearn how we approach food. Let's see. Once you recognize the simple fact that food preferences are learned, many of the ways we approach eating start to look a little weird. To take a small example, some more exemplification here. So take a small example. Consider the parents who go to great lengths to hide, or scare quotes, vegetables in children's meals. Is broccoli really so terrible that it must be concealed from innocent minds? Of course not. Ha ha ha. Rhetorical question. Aimed at parents who may do this. So it's trying to get the audience, parents, to kind of laugh at themselves and how they try to hide healthy food into children's meals. Whole cookbooks have been devoted to this arcane pursuit. It suggests like arcane, so trickery. It starts with the notion that children have an innate resistance to vegetables and will only swallow them unawares, bits into pasta sauce or baked into sweet treats. They could never learn to love courgette for its own sake. We think we are being clever when we smuggle some beetroot into a cake. Ha! Tricked you into eating root vegetables. So there's use of sly humour here. Is there a better way though? Since the child is not conscious that they are consuming beetroot, the main upshot is to entrench their liking for cake. So it's a bit self-defeating. A far cleverer thing would be to help children learn to become adults who choose vegetables consciously of their own accord. And of course, what adult parent wouldn't like that? So what do you need to do? You need to help children learn to become adults who choose vegetables consciously of their own accord. I'm not too sure the text has shown us or outlined how we can specifically do this, but it does suggest there is a problem to the way we approach food and eating, and actually it suggests that it is all about choice and a matter of willpower, and we need to break the self-perpetuating cycle that we are trapped in with buying artificial foods, high in sugar, fat and salt. How we're trained. Notice like it's framed in psychological terms. We're trained, so there's a slight kind of idea here that we are conditioned to expect our food to taste a certain way, to taste high in sugar, fat and salt. A far cleverer way would be to help children learn to become adults who choose vegetables consciously of their own accord. So, thoughtfully aware of the issue, aware that they can choose to be healthy if they so choose, if they so want, of their own accord. Kind of like framed a little bit kind of easily here. So overall, just thinking, how does the article persuade the reader to rethink their approach to food and eating? Well, mostly it's framed as a problem. Our approach to food and eating is disordered, obsessive, it's mad, it's crazy. We obsess around the foods, we want to get healthy, but we need to rethink, reconceptualize the whole idea of food and how we eat. The writer is suggesting it's willpower, it's mind over matter, and suggests there is a way to find what's good for us if we so choose. Now, they also frame our tastes as part of our identity, as central to our being, and central to our emotions and feelings as well. This is a key idea, short paragraph. The idea here is that there's nothing inevitable about your eating habits. It's up for grabs. What you choose to eat is your decision.